And
And
welcome. It's great to have you folks here again for another installment of our series. We're going on getting started in real estate, as well as other things. This is kind of a catch-all. Really, you can apply these principles pretty much anything that you do. And today we're going to be talking about time management and how time management can help you to create a successful life. It's really an important aspect of creating that. So, uh, as always, we have to lay out this disclaimer that we are not giving legal advice. Any legal advice that you need, you're going to have to get from a professional, either an attorney or an accountant or somebody that's licensed to give you that kind of advice. So, just to start off here, time management, it's one of the most important keys to creating a successful business and a successful life. And the main purpose for time management is really to help you stay focused and on target with doing whatever the most important thing to do is. And so we can fill up our lives with schedules and things to do and lists and whatnot. And sometimes those things aren't really the most important things we need to be doing, and sometimes we get distracted and pulled off track. But having a good time management system is what keeps you redirecting yourself and focusing on those things that are most critical. And so it's really important that you put something together that's going to help you to get back to that place every time that you stray. But the system that you put together needs to be based on priorities. And we talked a little bit about that last week, about establishing priorities and building that on a basis of principles and things that you believe to be true. And so if you go back and capture the things that we talked about last week, it'll help you with this next step here of being able to manage your time. And we're also going to talk a little bit about organizing your time into blocks of time and how to create some balance so that you don't get pulled off into things that are going to be unhealthy and not help you to progress the way you want to. One of the things that's really helpful to understand is that time, in a lot of ways, is like money. And you heard that time is money, but it also acts like money in a lot of ways. So like money, if you don't give it a place to go, it's going to go in the place of least resistance. It's just going to basically disappear or be spent in places where it's not productive, doesn't create anything. It's not going to move you forward in life. So you need to be able to give your time direction. Another interesting thing about time is that if you invest time in doing the things to prepare, to plan, to help your time be more effective and more efficient, you're going to get a lot more out of those kind of activities than you're ever going to spend. So it's kind of like priming the pump. On those old-fashioned pumps, you pour a little water in, you're going to get a whole lot out. And time is like that. If you put a little bit in to planning and getting things straight and your priorities right, you're going to get a whole lot more out. And so when I hear people say I didn't have time to plan, it tells me they have really the backwards perspective on what planning is all about and why planning could actually free up time for them that they're currently wasting. And lastly, um, like money, if we are a good steward of our time, if we're responsible with our time, we're going to be given more time. And that happens in a couple of different ways. Probably the most obvious way is that as we become better time managers, then we're able to have other people help us in the projects that we have, in the things that we do, and we will multiply ourselves many times over. So it's not that we're given more hours in the day, but we're able to magnify ourselves and our influence many more times than if we were just in it by ourselves, and if we were just trying to do things catch as catch can, rather than being a good steward and planning and managing our time well. Christine, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Not to add, I just want to emphasize what you said again, in that directing your time is really identical to directing your money. You need to plan where it's going to go before it gets there. It's the same thing with time. Just, before your paycheck shows up, if you know put this much into savings, this much towards the car payment, this much has to go into the emergency fund, and it is directed. You don't even have to think about it. It's so much easier. And it is actually a higher level of living than to just get your paycheck and spend it wherever. Same thing with time. We all get the same 24 hours in a day. So if you don't decide this needs to go for family, this needs to go for myself, this needs to go for the business, it'll just disappear. So I just want to emphasize that really as hard as I can to you guys, that time will just disappear if you don't tell it what you need it to be used for and direct your time. That's all. Thanks, Steve.
Very nice. Thank you. So we're going to give you a little bit of direction on how to prepare to make time your friend, not your enemy. And to start with, I'm going to encourage you guys to get a planner of some sort. Whether it's a physical hard copy kind of a thing where you're writing with a pen or a pencil, or whether it's something that you do electronically on a computer or your phone or some other device. Get something that you can be able to reliably count on in order to set up appointments and to set up the order of things that need to be done in your scheduling. So the key is to pick something that you will use, okay? And to not duplicate it in a whole bunch of different media, because it's really hard. If you have 4 different ways to report something and you want to make a change, now you got to go change it 4 times over. That's not very effective or efficient. So unless one thing can talk to another, keep it simple and keep it where it's going to be something that you will actually pick up and use and check in on. Okay? Getting organized is a real important piece of getting this whole thing started. And we're going to talk about 3 steps in being able to make that happen. One is to clear your mind, to have a clear mind. And then with that clarity, you want to prioritize the things that you're going to be going about in your day. And then once you get your priorities straightened up, now you can schedule things in. And this is a process that you'll use every day. Clear your mind, prioritize, and then schedule. And so it's going to be important for you to get that process down and then keep track of what you do and measure how effective you are. If you want to improve anything, you need to be able to measure it. So you may only find that you are on track 10% of the time during the week. And if you are on target 12% of the time the following week, that may not seem like a big improvement to you, and you're still 88% off target, but you're improving, moving in the right direction. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of what's going on there so you can see what direction you're headed and be able to measure your momentum as you go. So the term that Christine likes to use is defragging your mind. I think that's really descriptive. And if you think about when you defrag your computer, what happens is that the software is going to go through on your computer and it's going to take all of the files that are static. They stay the same. The files that are fragmented, they're going to put those things all together and match them up with stuff that's related to it, and they're going to basically make it so it's not fragmented anymore and clump things all together so that you optimize the free space that's going to allow you to do more things and to do it quicker. So that's what happens with a computer. So Christine's description of defragging your mind is really fairly descriptive. So what I want to do is introduce you to a guy whose his name is David Allen. He's known as a productivity guru. He wrote a book called Getting Things Done. I really love his subheading. That is The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. And if you could just imagine being able to grab onto that, stress-free productivity, that's quite an accomplishment. And so he's going to give you some ideas of how to do that. And if you want to pick up his book or go to his website, you can get a lot more information about that. I just want to give you a little bit of introductory ideas, not necessarily that I'm telling you need to go get this stuff, but the process that he describes is really pretty helpful and fits right into what Christine describes as defragging. So one of the things that you want to do to start out with is just do a brain dump. Get everything out of your head. Because everything that you carry around in your head is kind of like, again, we can compare this to a computer. If you have too much stuff going on, you only have so much RAM to use, right? And eventually, if your CPU isn't totally awesome, it's going to start to drag and things will slow down, and your machine's not going to work quite as well. So when you have all of these things going on in your mind, subconsciously and consciously, you know you need to be doing, you know that needs to get done, it starts to hang on you and drag on you. And so we want to take all of that out, take it out of your head, and put it down on a piece of paper. This is time consuming. I'm not going to kid you about that. But what you come out of the other end with is really significant. You think back on that priming the pump I was talking about a little bit earlier, about investing some time into creating more time. You know, this is really where the rubber hits the road with this sort of thing. So ideally, you'll want to put on maybe sticky notes. Just have one piece of paper for one item. Okay? Don't try to just make a list on a piece of paper. Just one thing on one piece of paper. And once you get everything out, and you can actually use different kinds of prompts to help you think of more things, like maybe things that your spouse thinks you need to do, things that you need to do in order to get your car where it needs to be, things that you need to do in order to get your house where you want it to be, things that you need to do in order to make your job more efficient or productive. I mean, you can just start thinking about different areas in your life where there's stuff to do. And what happens is that once you get all this stuff down and written down, you're going to look at it and go, that's more than 3 people can do in a lifetime. Well, how can I be expected to do all this stuff? And some of the expectations are your own. Some are the expectations that are put on you by other people. But get them all out. Okay? And once you get them down onto the piece of paper, we're going to sort these things into categories. We're going to have a category for things that need to be done soon, things that can be done in the future, and things that just don't need to be done. And for right now, that's my favorite category, things that don't need to be done, because I'm going to deep six those. They're just going to be gone. So one of the first things I want to do once I get my list put together is toss out all those things that I don't need to be doing. And whether they need to be assigned to somebody else or whatever, I want to clear my plate of some of those things. And some of those things might be things I've had on my list for years, and they're never going to happen. They don't have to happen. There's no reason why I had to carry it around as dead weight. Okay? I'm just going to junk them. Next is I want to divide the things that need to be done soon into 2 categories. I want to have the things that only I can do, and those things I need to schedule. I need to put them in somewhere. And then there's things that other people can do, and those things I want to delegate. So this is part of multiplying yourself. Whenever you're in a position to delegate things out to other people that will help you build your business or help you be more productive in whatever it is you're doing, now you're beginning to multiply your own time. Finally, the things that can be done later, you want to put those into a file, not one that everything's going to disappear in, but one that you know that you're going to go back periodically, check into, and see if some of those things aren't going to be more pertinent now and don't need to be put off any longer, but now we're ready to address them. You have any questions about that? Any comments, Christine?
Nope, I love it.
All right, let's move on then. This looks a little bit complicated, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm going to let you sort it out on your own, just to go through how this thing graphs out. But basically, this is when you have some kind of a new item coming in, and you're going to make some decisions about it. So you're going to find out if this new thing comes in, is it actionable? Then you're going to have one course. And the most immediate decision you need to make about that is it a project or not? If it is, we're going to move it over to that project column and go through that process, and then we're back on track with whether or not it can be completed in 2 minutes or less. If the answer to that is yes, then you just do it. Go ahead and knock those things out. It's going to take longer than that, then schedule it. Okay. The things that are not actionable, there's a thing that you can do with that. You know, could it be? Is it going to be needed in the future? If the answer is no, that goes in the trash pile. If the answer is yes, there's a process to work through that as well. So spend some time with this. You may want to tweak it to fit your own way of doing things, but this is a really great and efficient way to systematically handle new stuff that comes in. So one of the things I'd really recommend if you're going to be highly efficient is to create systems. And when stuff comes in, it's not about decision making so much anymore. You don't have to figure stuff out. You just have to plug it into the system, and the system's going to work it the way it needs to go, and it'll be handled quite well. And so check into that and see how you might be able to make that fit what you do. This is a representation of how to create balance with all these things that you need to have done, all the things you need to do. So there's different areas of life here. You can see there's finances, romance, intimacy, health, social, physical, career. And what you see here, if you look at the career, it's the light blue. That one's clear out to the outer edge. Finances is only like 2 rings out. Physical is only 1 ring out. So if you imagine this as a wheel, not with that green outer edge, but just with the color pieces, you can see when that starts to roll, it's going to be pretty bumpy, right? It's not going to roll very well. You'd be better off having everything at 1 ring than you would have in your business out there at 5 and your physical just at 1 ring, because now it's out of balance. And being out of balance, it's going to create problems. And so lack of balance in your life can create chaos. It can create health issues. It can create stress. It can create depression, create anxiety, all kinds of strange stuff that can happen when your life is out of balance. You make poor decisions. You end up wasting time and resources. So look at how you would map out your life and see what you can do to create more balance in it. And we've all heard the stories of people that get so out of balance in, say, a career and sacrifice their health or their family, their relationships. Those kind of things are pretty common stories. Or the people that put social and family ahead of everything else, and then their career suffers, their finances suffer. So whatever it is that's keeping you out of balance, those are the kind of things that you want to kind of rein in a little bit and put more effort into the areas that need some strengthening. We talked about priorities last time in the last presentation, so I'm not going to go in depth into this. Just recognize that as you go throughout your planning, that you need to reassess where you are on your priorities and set up your schedule, set up your blocks based on the priorities. And we have a suggested list here of kind of how those priorities could go, and we feel like they should go. So your spiritual life, your relationship with God, number 1. Relationship with your spouse, if you've got one, is next. Your family. Then you've got other things that start popping up. Your personal life, like your health and whatnot, your day job, businesses, etc. But make sure that, again, that when you start to plot out your week and blocking out time, that you do that based on priorities. Okay? Any questions or thoughts to this point?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a. I'm not able to get I'm not seeing the screen really well. I only see like a quarter of it. But is there a synergy? Synergy. I really don't have a question. I have to think through that. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt.
If you look at the very top of your panel, you've got File, Options, and View. If you click on View, there might be an option there to have it show you 100%, and that might solve your problem.
You said the very top, that little hand? No.
You should have a panel, your GoToMeeting panel. So if you click on the little flower thing down at the bottom of your screen, it'll show you the panel. And at the very top, it says File, Options, View, Help. And you might be able to pull that open into a full view. Okay?
Yeah, that's not. I got an iPhone 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll be difficult. So we'll send you the slides. You'll be able to go through this later.
Cool.
So just hang on for now.
That
Okay?
works.
All right. So setting up the blocks, again, what we're looking at here is setting up specific times in your day where you stay focused basically on one thing, one category. And we've all seen the power of focus. And you've all heard stories about, you know, if you take a magnifying glass and you focus sunlight, that's, you know, normally it's kind of just diversified out there. If you take the sunlight and you focus it through a lens and zero it in on, say, a leaf or a paper, you can actually focus all of that energy into a spot where it'll light a fire. So that's kind of what we want to do with our life and our business, is focus our energy, focus all of that into something that's specific so that we can create a fire in that area. So we want to start first by blocking out the categories on your planner based on those priorities that we talked about. So you would have a time block where you want to do things that will help you with your relationship with God, to help you with your spirituality. Block those times out. Then you want to block out the times that you would spend with a spouse, and then your family. And then what comes next is kind of an individual, more of an individual kind of thing. Do you work at a company? Do you have your own business? Start blocking out those things as well. So in blocking out the hours, the very first thing you need to do is stick in all the things that are already wired in, the things that can't move. So just like if you're defragging your computer, you have stuff that's kind of permanently in a certain place on your computer. Your schedule's kind of like that. So if you know you have church at 9 o'clock on Sundays, that's not something you can just arbitrarily change. That's when the meeting is. It involves other people. That's when it's scheduled. That's when you can go. If you have lunch dates with somebody, that's something that's plugged in. So whatever appointments you have, whatever schedule you have that is created by other people's expectations, like you have to show up to work a certain time or whatever, block that out first, because those things are not movable. The things that are movable then become things like your time with God, so you want to put that somewhere where you're going to make sure it happens. Time with your spouse, time with your family, etc., etc. And you want to block out sections of time. There's no limit on how much you can do at a time, or minimum or maximum. I prefer personally to work in 2-hour blocks. Often that works. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm okay with that. But if I set up a 2-hour block with a break built in, then I know at the top of the 2 hours I get a little bit of rest, I get a little bit of time to breathe. Now I'm ready to prepare my mind to go into whatever the next block of time is. So for me personally, that works out okay. Okay. Understand this: if you do not protect your time blocks and respect your boundaries, your own boundaries, no one else will either. So when you kind of lay it out for people that I'm going to be working from here to here, I'm working from home or whatever, and from noon to 2 or whatever, I'm going to be on the phone. You need to respect that time. If you schedule time with your spouse, you need to respect that time. If you schedule time with a child, you need to respect that time. And if you give before you get, you're going to have a lot fewer problems with other people and their expectations of you. So your kids will probably be ecstatic about having scheduled time with a parent. And especially if they know that the parent respects that and honors that. That's huge. And when they get that and they get that kind of focused attention that isn't going to get broken by a phone call or an email or a text that comes through, if they really feel that and understand that, they'll be much, much less likely to interrupt you in your time when you're at work, and you can actually just bring that up. You know how when we were together, the phone rang, but I didn't answer it? That's because I respected that time with you, and I need that kind of respect for my other time as well. And they're really willing to give that to you. So unless you've been really negligent in those areas, it should happen really quickly. Otherwise, you might have to get them to trust that that's going to stick. But it'll happen over time either way. But you need to protect your own time. Any thoughts about that, Christine?
No, I love it. I just say amen to that, especially the boundaries part with respecting everybody else's time. It's nice. Nicely put.
Yeah. So I learned a saying from somebody many years back, and that is that boundaries keep us safe. And that's true in so many areas. So learn to respect and keep boundaries, your boundaries as well as other people's boundaries. It makes for a whole lot happier life and lifestyle. Okay, next thing is that you want to pull the main items off of your mind clearing exercise, the things that we wrote down, all the different tasks and things that needed to get done. You want to pull those out and you want to separate those out into the categories they fit into. So I can put stuff in there with my wife, I can put stuff in there with my job, I can put stuff in there with kids, I can line up church-related stuff. I'm going to put those things in my categories, right? Once they're in those discrete categories, then I'm going to be setting up as my time blocks. Now I can take those things, and I have a list of 20 things that I can arrange according to priority. And I'm going to put the most important thing right on top. And then I want to work from the top down to the bottom. Okay? Now, if I do that and I follow my schedule, at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to look back on my day and say, you know what, I knocked off some pretty important things today. If you don't do that, what tends to happen is that you've got this long list of stuff to do, and you end up spending a lot of your time in the things that are not as important, and kind of things that at the end of the day you kind of wonder where the day went. And the important things are still hanging out there, waiting to be addressed. And it's the important things that move you forward. It's the important things that create opportunity. It's the important things that create wealth. It's the important things that create success and prosperity. So it's the important things that we need to make sure we're addressing. Right?
Something to add there.
Yeah.
I had a coaching appointment with a lady this morning, and as you're talking, I'm imagining some people are going to think, oh, important is all, if I'm trying to create wealth, then it's money driven. It might be that I work harder, so I have to focus more on my business. But when I was talking with her, she has a mile-long to-do list for their 2 companies. And I know some of you have lists that long. Hopefully not many of you, because it's really an overwhelming mountain of things that she needs to do. But as we talked, she got really clear. And the most important things that she could come up with for me for today, for what would help her to feel peaceful, which is her main priority right now, is to create and sustain peace, is actually to go home, leave work behind, be a good mom, have dinner with the family, and be a good wife afterwards. So those things might not seem like they're exactly directed or related towards making more money and creating wealth and prosperity in life, but they absolutely are. If you feel like your priorities are in balance and the very important things are getting done, you will have peace in the other areas. So in a very similar way to what Steve said earlier, if you have, let's say you have scheduling to do and you keep putting it off, because you know it's going to take you an hour or two to gather all your parts and pieces together, go through the whole brain dump, get everything blocked off. It's going to be time intensive. But he mentioned getting time back. Well, obviously, the clock doesn't turn itself back and you don't start over. But here's how that happens. And it's the same way with creating that peace and balance in her life will bring her more of the goodness, more of the wealth, more of the abundance. If in your time you spend, let's say, this much time in your time management, and that feels like a really big chunk out of your really busy day or your really overwhelming week, but in effectiveness and in time back, you get this much more. What's better? That you've recaptured efficiency, you've been able to get more things done because now you're clear on who to delegate to, you've freed up space in your brain, you've freed up time and energy. I know this is the process I go through all the time. So is it more important to get this big chunk or to keep this little chunk? You have to decide. Do you give this up to get this back? And that's exactly what she has to do right now. So when Steve's mentioning important, remember, when important things are done, they free up a lot of energy, a lot of emotional energy, a lot of spiritual, what would you call that, Steve? Free up spiritual blessings to be able to be dumped in your life. Which is going to bring you back more than what you put into it. So remember this law of what you put in, you're going to get out. But there's also an abundance law that is attached to this kind of thinking and doing. So whatever you put in, you'll get back out and then some. That's how it works.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, it's kind of like there's a couple of laws that fit into this. One would be the law of reaping and or sowing and reaping, right? So you sow the seed, you nurture the seed, and it grows into something that's multiplied many, many times over. So out of one kernel of corn, you get a gazillion of them, right? So it's kind of cool how that works.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What happens when things don't go according to the plan? So you make this plan, and then life happens, and this will always be the case. And sometimes you might actually make it past 5 minutes before things happen. But sometimes not. So before beginning your day, you want to be able to review your schedule, how you've got it laid out, make any adjustments that need to be made, and then make sure that your blocks are all set up and it's got the items in it that they need. You've adjusted for anything that happened the previous day or overnight that might make some changes in what you thought you might be doing today. And then you set out to nail it. You set out to make your day happen. And you're going to want to set up some reminders. For some people, if you're like me, the more the merrier. Lots of reminders are helpful. Not just a reminder to change activities, but reminders to get focused back on where I need to be. So just to have a reminder for me to switch activities every 2 hours isn't going to give me my maximum efficiency. My maximum is going to come by being reminded to get back on task when I fall off 20 or 30 minutes into the block. When a distraction comes and I go chase the squirrel, I need something to bring me back and say, hey, you stay on track. And so, setting up periodic alarms can help you do that. And that would be one way to make that happen. But figure out a way to remind yourself to get back on track. When a distraction does come, you need to figure out whether or not it's a higher priority than what you've got on your list. Sometimes they are. Sometimes, one of the really great examples of this was somebody that I was coaching with a little while back, and they were really frustrated at how they had scheduled all these things in their day, and one of them was to run some errands, and she had set aside an hour or so for running the errands, but while she was out doing that, she got a flat tire. And this complication led to that complication, and by the time all was said and done, there was 2 hours gone out of her day that she didn't plan for. So now, in her mind, her plan is ruined. Okay? So, what we need to be doing in a situation like that is, first of all, asking the question, what's the most important thing to do right now? For her, the most important thing was to get the tire fixed, get back on the road. She was staying in a place of integrity by doing that, right? Not going and abandoning her car with a flat tire so she can get back on the phone to make phone calls. That's not her higher priority right now, even if that's what she had scheduled. It's you deal with the immediate crisis or whatever might be happening, the immediate distraction. If it's a higher priority, take it, do it. That's where the most integrity is. So if the answer is, yeah, it's a higher priority, then do the new thing. If not, if it's something that really needs to be done, then you schedule it in somewhere. And if it's not something that needs to be done, just ignore it. We don't have to reply or respond or react to everything that comes our way. Some things we can just let them slide by. So whenever you discover yourself off track, the goal is to get back as soon as possible. And some of the ideas that we have found really, really helpful and effective are some ideas that come from Stephen Covey. And I really like his analogy of an airplane that takes off from LA, lands in New York, left on time, it arrives on time, but while it's in the air, it's off course maybe 90 to 95% of the time. Because you got turbulence, you got currents, you got all kinds of stuff going on up there in the air, mechanical things. But it gets where it's supposed to go. It gets there on time because it has constant course correction. It has a way of knowing when it's off track, and it makes the proper adjustment almost immediately. So it's wavering, it's moving around a lot up there, but it doesn't ever get very far before it's brought back into alignment. And so from a distance, the path of that airplane looks like a straight line, the shortest distance between here and there. That's what you'd like to be able to create in your life. So it's not that you're not going to have things happen. It's not that it's going to be a perfect straight line. But if you get back as soon as possible, your life will look more like you just went from here to there in the shortest amount of time. So get back on track as soon as you can, and don't worry about what might have been missed unless it was really critical. You can always reschedule it. So the idea is to get back to where you should be on your schedule. So if I have things scheduled, let's just say every 2 hours, I have something scheduled at 10, at noon, at 2, and at 4, and I had some mishap that took out my noon to 2 schedule. When I come back online with my plan, I don't go back to noon. Noon's gone. I come to 2 o'clock. And I want to look at what happened between noon and 2, and if there's anything that was critically important for me to handle today, then I'm going to stick it in someday, or some way today. If it can wait till tomorrow, I'm going to put it on tomorrow because the time I set aside for it today is gone. And I made that happen in an honorable way, so I got to be okay with that. Okay? So this is one way that you can keep from getting derailed every time you stray off of your plan. It's not that you have to go back and start all over again because you'll never get through with your day. You pick up where you should be and assess what got missed. If it's critical, put it back into your day-to-day. If not, make it happen a different day. Okay? That'll be a big help for a lot of people. Another idea that comes from Stephen Covey is that you need to schedule some free time. You need to be able to do what he calls sharpen the saw. And so be aware that you have to have some downtime. Again, this is one of the places where time is like money. If you have a budget and you're so strict on your budget that you don't have any money for things that are fun, if you don't have an entertainment budget, you won't last on that budget for very long. It's just going to fall apart under its own weight. The same thing is true if you're scheduling your time. If you overburden yourself with all the things that you need to do and you don't schedule anything fun or relaxing or just debriefing or detoxing or whatever, you're going to run into some issues. You're going to run into some real problems carrying the weight of all of that. You need to schedule time to unwind. Schedule time to just be at peace, be yourself. And no worries, just go do something other than all the things you've got on your list to do. That's your time. Do whatever you want with it. But schedule it out and make sure you take it. Lastly, I want you to get the idea that what we're looking for is direction, not necessarily perfection. So measure your progress. That'll help you see where you started after a couple days, or maybe a week. You'll start seeing a shift and a difference, and you'll be able to appreciate that. And the better job you do of documenting those kind of things, um, by putting those things in a journal perhaps, measuring them and keeping track of stuff, the faster your changes will happen. So keep that in mind. And the last thing I have on here actually is the idea at the end of the day, it's really a good practice to look back on the day and just kind of count your wins, your victories. What went right? Where did I see the hand of God in my life today? What are the kinds of things that pointed out to me that I'm not alone in this thing? What are the good things that happened? What are the promises of things to come? So they may not be full-fledged harvest of the fruit, but it's a sprout that I can look at and say, hey, that's a good thing. Keep track of those things. Feel gratitude for those things and record that gratitude. That's one really great way to nurture good things in your life, focusing on good things so that you can create good things. What you focus on, you create. People who focus a lot on negativity and complaining create a lot more negativity in their lives, and they have a lot more to complain about. People who focus on positive things find that their life is fairly positive. Even with all the nonsense that might go on, they know how to deal with it. They know how to find joy and happiness in all circumstances. So keep a good record of that, and you'll be really amazed after 6 months or so to go back and to read some of those things that you were writing. And just watch how that helps you to evolve. It's a powerful thing. Christine, what would you like to add?
Actually, while you were doing that last part, I was sitting there listening, and then I didn't know the very last thing you had on this slide was about celebrating the wins for the day. And as you read it to me, I reviewed the conversations I had with people all day. So I wrote down your reminder, and I think it needs to be right here on my head that whatever I focus on, I'm going to create. So I'm just going to say amen to that, and thank you for the reminder. And if you want to create success, what you're talking about, you just covered start to finish, really, how to do that. And I love how you presented it in the whole light of progress, not perfection. You really need to stay focused on the progress, because I, for one, being really, I'm a very driven person. There's more that I want to do than I ever have time to do in a day or a week or probably my lifetime. But I'm going to do what I can. And I really needed that kick in the pants to remember that what I focus on, I'm going to create more and more of. So I'm going to take my little lovely reminder with me to bed tonight and spend some time focusing on that and reading it about 50 times before I fall asleep. So thank you, amen, and I appreciate the kick in the pants.
That's awesome. Okay.
That is awesome.
Cool.
I know it's true. I know it. I tell it to other people, but I have this really best girlfriend, and sometimes when I call her and I say, I'm dealing with this, what do you have? She shares her wonderful, amazing advice to me, and whenever I tell her that, she says, well, it's just all stuff that I needed to hear again anyway, because in the sharing we are reminded, and she's a perfect example of that to me in my life. So I just want you to know, Steve and I don't sit here in perfection. We are also a work in progress, and so we just want to pull you along with us in applying these true principles in our lives so that we can create more goodness for ourselves, for our families, for those around us, and charities we want to be involved with, or any charities and organizations we want to create or continue to grow. So it's the same for us. All these principles apply to every single one of us, and so I want you to know that we're right there with you.
I am so encouraged. I'm speaking for myself here, but I am absolutely so encouraged. That is so cool. I love it.
Well, that warms my heart to hear that we spread some encouragement out into the universe today, because I'm a huge believer in what you sow, you will reap. So thank you. I I appreciate you sharing that with us.
My pleasure, and yes, and yes, and I too, um, uh, you know, iron sharpens iron, and you know, this is, you know, I'm sure you have big dreams and big plans, big goals, and you want to get things done, and as we've all been learning, no, we can't do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and like I had said before, in any capacity that I could can grow with you, and to help you achieve your goals, I can already see just by doing that, a lot of my goals are going to be accomplished as well. It just so happens I just finished last Wednesday a life planning class that covers a lot of these topics, and that I've been hearing coming from your webinars. And I am new to, I haven't been able to, follow a lot of what you've been up to over the last couple of years, but I've just, all I can say is I am honored to be here, and I'm smiling, so it's cool.
That's great. I appreciate that. Well,
Yeah.
reminder, we have other coaching programs. We do several different courses in real estate investing, everything from wholesaling to buy, fix, flip, rentals, those kind of strategies. So you may want to explore some of that. We do life coaching, or we work with personal development, developing organizational skills and improving relationships, along with several other topics, as well as business coaching, where we help you from wherever you are in business, whether you're a startup or whether you've been in business for a lot of years and just need some fine-tuning. We're there for you for any one of those things. So if you have any questions, or if you have any desires to check into some of those things, then we would encourage you to do that. We kind of handle our Q&A here, but here's contact information. And again, this will come to you by way of email. So you'll have that available to you whenever you need it.
Cool.
And,
yeah.
That pretty well wraps it up. Any other questions before we go?
I don't know if there's anybody else on this webinar.
Not tonight.
Not tonight. Okay. So yeah, I mean, like, I have, we're all kind of tailor making, our lives as we go, and I clearly, definitely recognize a need in my life for those, for an accountability coach, for sure, definitely. And Christine has demonstrated that she's quite capable of doing that in the past, and and I don't know what kind of entity you guys have created here, and I definitely need one. Okay. And we can get into the details of all when, as time goes, and as we work together, but I guess one of the, I have a need also that we can talk about now, if we have time.
Well, keep in mind this is recorded and it will be shared. So
Okay.
that conversation outside of the webinar. We'll just wrap this up so we can stop the recording, and then we can talk about your needs outside of that. And we'd encourage anybody who gets this recording and is listening to do the same thing, because everybody's got a different combination of those types of needs that were on the screen. I don't have the slides. Steve's got that control. Maybe flip it back to that one, Steve. But I've noticed over the years, you might start as a business coaching client, but it kind of turns into, hey, I need help with my marriage. I'm not doing so well maybe in my parenting or taking time for myself and my personal development. So it oozes into these other areas of life. That's just how life is. And a lot of people, we start on the real estate investing, end up morphing into other types of coaching. So really one of the advantages that you have in working with Steve and myself is that we're not just segmented to one type of coaching. And accountability works across the board in any type of thing that you're doing. So it's the same process. We're not going to care what your needs are. Well, we care about your needs, but we don't care what they are when we're putting together a coaching package, because it doesn't matter to us. They all intertwine. Life is very intertwined. So when you guys have needs, whether you say, I really want to focus on real estate investing this year or for the next 6 months and get my first rental, or I want to start by expanding my business and duplicating myself so I'm not stuck in the office all the time, so then I can go and invest. Or if you just have general life coaching needs, if you have a divorce going on, if you have any kind of problems with balancing and managing your time, we're not kidding about time being that important. Your time management is essential to every other category of your life. Same with money and money management and creating wealth. So all of those things, if you feel like you want to tackle 2 or 3 of them at a time, that's okay. We can do one of the life circles, one of the balancings, in all your different areas, and say, where are you high, where are you low, let's work on these things. And so we set goals. Then the accountability part comes into play, where we just, hey, all right, this is where you're starting, and we go with that plan. And then when those things are tackled, then we set some more goals and continue to go down the road. So the process is the same no matter which ones of these you need. So you can just tell us, this is where I need to start. There might be some times where we recommend you get some other things in order a little bit better before you start, but most things can be done simultaneously, kind of back and forth, using the same kind of time blocking that Steve taught you tonight. So you can manage everything going on in your life if you like, but other than extreme cases where maybe you're completely out of balance, we'll go ahead and let you do some real estate investing or some business coaching and some life coaching and some personal development mixed in there, because everything should have a place somewhere in your weekly calendar. You should have some time for yourself, some time with your spouse, some time with the Lord, some time with the kids. You've got to juggle all of it in there. So that's part of what we do. So I just wanted to let you know, Donald, that's fine. We can help you figure out which parts you want to focus on first. And for anybody else, they can be completely different pieces. They can just be one piece at a time. We'll work that out when we talk. But then we can kind of bundle together your needs and figure out a coaching package for you.
It's good.
Very good.
That's what we do. So go ahead and wrap up the recording, Steve, and then we'll stay on the line for a little bit with you, Donald.
Very good.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Again, thank you for being here. And I hope you were able to address some issues, and keep coming back to this. There's a lot of information there that you may not have picked up first time around, and I think that if you were to apply these principles, even just 1 or 2 of them at a time, you can start developing some muscles, if you will, in becoming better at managing time and building a better future. So thank you again for coming, and we'll see you next time. Next week we'll be talking about managing money and creating that mindset to create some personal wealth. So we will see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.